What's going on, people? It's your boy BSG. Hope you having a good day today. Unfortunately, I know for some of y'all that are in some of these other coins, you're not having a good day, right? But things like that happen, and you just have to deal with it. You also have to reevaluate, what's going on. That's why I did the last video I did, talking about XRP and what was it? XRP, Ethereum, and it was one other one, and all three of those are down. We'll see what happens long term, but it's important that you understand the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and that's what I try to do. And so this video today is not going to be that. It's going to be more of a projection video. I haven't done a video like this in a while for 100. As y'all know, I rep 100 as much as I can. So I just want to talk about the many different narratives where 100 can go. Narratives are one of the most important things, and is usually something people, especially new people in crypto, don't pay attention to. But if you're able to establish yourself, carve out a narrative within the crypto space, that is ultimately what propels you to many billions of market cap. So of course we got to start with Bitcoin, right? You see the price right now is down since the last video. But the Bitcoin narrative, what do you think the Bitcoin narrative is? Right? If you take a second to think about what is the Bitcoin narrative? What I think the Bitcoin narrative is somebody that's been in it, for 12 years, is, Bitcoin is freedom. Bitcoin is actual money. What we all work for is paper money, fake money, money that can be printed. Bitcoin is finite. There's only so much of it, yet it can be moved around even faster than paper money. And unlike regular money, it can't be shut down by anybody as long as you protect yourself and things like that, right? The Bitcoin network has never been hacked, ever. A lot of people here, they attribute a lot of hacks to crypto, and they do happen. But when it comes to Bitcoin, it usually involves something called social engineering, which is literally somebody calling you on the phone, telling you to transfer something, or sending you an email saying you're being scammed. Click on this thing and send your Bitcoin here. With Bitcoin, you have to physically send it to somebody, right? Even when the government has confiscated Bitcoin, they didn't confiscate Bitcoin by some back end way. You have to actually give it to them, right? Which is why it's important that you keep your Bitcoin yourself, because if an exchange is in bed with whatever entity, they can take your Bitcoin and send it to them, right? But if you have it in your own wallet, they can't. So that's what I think the narrative of Bitcoin is. You can comment below what you think it is, but I want you to see here, it took literally 8 years, 7, 8 years for Bitcoin to even begin to start being that narrative, right? And even now, I would say the majority of the world doesn't believe, right, that Bitcoin is real money. They still trust the dollar, right? Even other countries still trust the dollar more than their own currency. You know what I'm saying? But look how long that took for that narrative to develop. Now, most people in crypto, we know, okay, Bitcoin is money. I can move it. I can travel with it. I can pay for things, right? I am living Satoshi's dream, basically. I'm living off of Bitcoin. Every bite to eat I get, every shoes I buy for my kids and my wife, nothing for myself, right? Every game I buy, anything, that's all being paid with Bitcoin. I have no other income whatsoever, right? And that's what Satoshi designed it to be. And, luckily, I was able to get enough of it 12 years ago and, have added some along the way to be able to take little tiny pieces of that Bitcoin and live off of it, right? So that's the Bitcoin narrative. And you see, again, it's taken, 14, 15 years to get to where we are now, right? Then we can talk about Ethereum, okay? What do you think the Ethereum narrative is? What do you think that is? It's going to depend on when you came in. Now, if you came in the beginning, Ethereum was being touted as the world's supercomputer. Every business is going to run on Ethereum. That's what we were told. Like, this is the true definition of blockchain, right? It's going to be cheaper and faster than Bitcoin and all that. And, everybody's going to build everything in the world on Ethereum. Well, that didn't happen. But even though that didn't happen, right, you can see how Ethereum grew from $1, 60 cents, 50 cents, right, to now $4,000 almost, right, off the narrative that it's the world's supercomputer. I would think most people, other than, diehard Ethereum people, would probably concede that it didn't become the world's supercomputer, because it's too expensive, right, in terms of the gas fees. They didn't fix that, right? So now the narrative, in my opinion, the narrative is for rich hedge funds to buy Ethereum to simply make 3% a year. It's become like, treasury bond or something like that. Seriously. Because the people who are buying Ethereum now and using it now, they're not even using it for what it was designed for. They're just using it for basically staking, right? So, but again, look how long it's taken to get from, small numbers to $4,000, even with that narrative. And when you talk to most people about crypto, everybody's heard of Bitcoin pretty much, and then second is Ethereum. That's how they say it in their head. So if they say it like that in their head, it becomes that in reality. And that's why XRP and others spend so much money on propaganda to make you think that it's something that it's not, right? So what I want to do is talk about narratives, the many different possible narratives for 100. As you see, 100 doing this thing, not reacting like the rest of the market. Why is that? There's a reason for that. I don't know if I'll have time to get into it today, but I want to talk about the many different potential narratives, because the bottom line is Bitcoin, the only narrative that it could be is, that it's money, right? And, if you do certain things, if you remember your private key and things like that, it can be secure, right? But Bitcoin will never be like the smart contract platform of the world. That will never happen because it's too slow. And it's also expensive, right? The average Bitcoin transaction is like $15. So if you're talking about, building the world's systems on top of it, imagine, needing $15 to send a text message or or needing $15 to pay for something at a restaurant, something like that, right? Luckily, I use different systems that allow me to use Bitcoin like money. There's Bitcoin credit cards and stuff like that, and so it doesn't charge the fees, which is fantastic. But in terms of actually building stuff on Bitcoin, smart contracts and things like that, it can't do that, right? Bitcoin also does not have any inherent code that makes it more secure than anything else, right? So, it doesn't, like if somebody gets access to it, they got it, and is not going to be pretty much anybody that can stop it on chain. They can stop it on centralized exchanges, right? Which, probably the weakness of Bitcoin. I know this is going to sound crazy because, again, I take advantage of it. But the biggest weakness of Bitcoin is probably the fact that most people want to convert it to fiat. And that's where it can be stopped, because there's only a few companies in the world that allow it to be converted to fiat. So if they decide to make your Bitcoin, worthless because of whatever reason, then you can no longer use those exchanges. How Bitcoin was intended to be used is person to person, peer to peer, so on and so forth, right? So, Bitcoin won't ever be anything more than what it is in terms of narrative, right? Ethereum, again, it's bottleneck. You can't do much, right? Yes, people have built things on it. It introduced smart contracts to the world and so on and so forth. But again, anytime a bunch of people start using Ethereum, it gets very expensive, right? The transactions get into the hundreds of dollars. I remember when Pepe was just coming up. Pepe was like maybe 100 million market cap or something like that, right? And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get into this Pepe. I see people are talking about it or whatever. I didn't know much about it. I just saw that it was moving. So I'm like, I'm gonna get into this Pepe, right? So I sent the Ethereum that I was gonna use to buy Pepe to my wallet, and that cost me $100. Right? Then I tried to swap the Ethereum for Pepe and it failed. That was another $100. I then tried to swap again and it failed. So that was another $100. Then I gave up. I'm like, this is stupid, right? I'm wasting this money. So then I had to send my Ethereum back, right, to, where I got it from. And that cost me $100. So it cost me $400 to try to do something that I couldn't even do. $400. That's Ethereum. So that was never going to work. And we were promised that it was going to be fixed and it was going to be cheaper. That never happened, right? So let's get into quickly, like, what are some of the potential narratives of 100? And one that I've never seen really anybody talk about, because maybe, they're not thinking like that, is the narrative that 100 could be a superior type of stable coin. Right now, I know that sounds crazy. Stablecoin, like what are you talking about? Basically, people run to stable coins when they're afraid. Right? They buy stable coins when they are afraid. And so that's kind of how I measure fear in the market right now. There's $250 billion in valuation worth of stable coins in the market. That means there's $250 billion worth of fear, which is a lot. But when you buy these stable coins, right, Nothing's going to happen in terms of like, there's not going to be any price movement. As we can see here, I was surprised about this. Hyperliquid owns 5 billion worth of USDC, right? Then there's MakerDAO. Then there's Binance, right? So, these are the people that own it. And luckily, USDC makes it available so you can see who owns it. That's what crypto was supposed to be about. But, when you put your money into stable coins, they're supposed to stay stable. And they don't pay you any interest. No matter how many people are using it, they don't pay you any interest. I remember when USDC was like, I want to say like 10 million market cap. I remember that. I remember when it was 10 million market cap. And now it's 73 billion. If I had bought $1 million worth of USDC back then, right, and I didn't touch it until now, I would still have $1 million worth of USDC, right? Because there was no program, no nothing that, paid you more. Also, again, there's no technology that, keeps your USDC safe, okay? So if 100 became, and I'm going to use very, very conservative numbers. In fact, before I even talk about the number, why would something like 100 be superior to USDC? Okay, well, first of all, if you want to protect yourself against market volatility and protect yourself from yourself, which some of us need that, you buy 100, right? When times are crazy right now, people draw, Bitcoin is down and so on and so forth. You would buy 100. And what would that allow you to do? That keeps you from touching your money for 100 hours. And that also keeps your money safe. Nobody can come in and hack it and take it and so on and so forth. Right? And then also anybody else that buys after you for 100 hours, they also have to hold for a minimum of 100 hours. Right? So if you're able to predict the fear, let's say this narrative started sticking, you like, okay, I think we're about to have a drop in the market. I think people are going to be fearful. I'm going to buy some 100 because I anticipate a bunch of people coming in to protect their money because it can't be hacked, it can't be phished, and it's going to be less volatile than the rest of the market, right? Because with anything else, you can jump in and out. You can buy $1 million worth of Bitcoins right now and then 5 seconds later sell it. And you can do that as many times as you want. And that's the reason why other cryptos have so-called volume, but it's usually just bots or, maybe some people just trading back and forth. No matter how much 100 you buy, you got to hold that. You can't generate so-called volume, right? Because, you got to hold it for 100 hours. So rather than using USDC to protect yourself, right? If people started using 100, you could have a situation where now you have something that's somewhat stable, but it actually has the potential to go up. And so just since August, if you started using 100 as your stable coin, you're up 30%. Just since August. USDC is not going to do that. And then, as I said, 100 cannot be hacked. All you got to do is every 100 hours top up. And to top up, all you have to do is buy like a penny worth. So you could put, $100,000 in 100. Let's just say you want to protect yourself, right? So let's say you had $100,000 worth of Ethereum, right? And you think people are going to start selling Ethereum or whatever. You take that 100K worth of Ethereum and you buy 100, and now you can protect it from hacks and everything else for, pennies every 100 hours. Right? What is that narrative worth? Okay. So I'm just going to take, like I said, the entire stablecoin market cap right now, and I'm going to pretend that it's not going to grow, which I know ain't true, but I'm just saying. So if it's $250 billion worth of stablecoins, if we take 1% of that, right? So 250 billion, if you take 2.5 billion, right, worth of that and put it into 100, then 100 is in the billions of market cap. Just that. No other development, nothing else going on, no other features, so on and so. It is a superior type of thing to hold. That's why it's like the first certificate of deposit. And whereas a CD, right? I don't know what CD rates are now, so I'm gonna make some stuff up. Let's say a CD rate is 3 or 4%, right? You're putting your money in there with the hopes of over the course of the year, it's gonna pay you 4%. Well, at these levels, especially over the course of a year, 100 could pay you 50 or 60 or maybe even 100%. Right? So if people know that, right, that's something that could take off. And I don't know of anybody that's even discussing that type of potential. But that's something that's there. 1% of the current stablecoin market, and it's billions. All right, that's one. Another potential narrative, right? This is the many narratives of 100, right? Is gaming. If you paid attention on socials, the devs have talked about, gaming platforms and things like that. Okay? Which is like it was like, hold on, bro. We was just talking about stable coins, this isn't that. That's way different than what we was talking about. Okay, that's fine. Right? We're talking about potential narratives. So here's another potential. Gaming. Axie Infinity is the most famous crypto game of all time right now. Right? And when it came out, it was pennies. And then after about a year or so, it went to $140 something. Right? It was all everybody was talking about because it was the first time that you could make crypto playing a game. Right? But what happened? It got hacked, when you know it. It got hacked, right? And, because of that, people lost, some people lost faith in it. Binance paid for the whole hack, right? Which I thought was wonderful. I actually ended up getting some Axie Infinity for free because Binance, was like, okay, if we're going to do this, you're going to give something to BNB chain holders. And so if you were holding PancakeSwap, they literally gave us some Axie Infinity for free. Some of y'all watching, you probably remember that, right? But over time, like most games, people lose interest. And I'm going to tell you what really happened. It became more expensive to play, right? Whereas in the beginning, it might have cost like $300 to get your Axie team because you needed 3 NFTs to play, right? At its height, it was like $5,000 or $6,000 or something just to start playing the game. Then the token that they were paying was inflationary. That was called Smooth Love Potion, right? And so they would just print those tokens because they needed to try to find a way to pay people, for playing the game. So they did so with inflation, right? And so, of course, once you inflate too much, a bunch of people start selling, they living off of it, so on and so forth, and it dies. Now, there are still tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people that still play Axie Infinity today, right? And people still eating off of it. It's not as much as they was, but they still eating off of it, right? So whatever idea that 100 has for coming out with some type of gaming platform, right? If they could develop something that didn't cost more, the more popular it became, right? And the opportunity for making money back here was the same as here and the same as here, right? So maybe, you don't have like huge spikes of people making a bunch of money. Maybe you just keep it consistent. I don't know. But if they're able to develop something like that, then right now, with nobody paying attention, Axie is 347 million market cap. Up here, it was billions. Right? Now, also keep in mind that whatever they do, everybody's going to have to hold for at least 100 hours. So if you get some type of momentum, whereas with Axie, people were probably selling like, oh, wow, look at what's going on. If you had, billions of dollars coming in over, this is from July 1st to November, right? 4 months. If you had billions of dollars coming in, right, that's going to stabilize over time and go up more over time before it maybe starts coming down. You know what I'm saying? Versus, a bunch of money coming in, let me cash out now. Right? It make people slow their roll. You know what I'm saying? So, this is the potential with that. So I'm not going to even say 1% of that. I would like, based on where it was, this was 40 billion market cap. It's now 300 million. 100 could be, let's say, 300 million, just based on the gaming idea. Okay? Also, in that same vein, let's talk about NFTs. Okay, you know that 100 is about NFTs and stuff. We're waiting on the NFT marketplace and things like that. So probably the best example of NFTs right now is Pudgy Penguins. Right? They're one of the top, NFT brands right now. And they're doing, a lot of stuff with gaming and stuff too, right? They're at 900 million, right? For, some NFTs that don't do anything. They just have a look. People like the look, right? But they don't do nothing. We know 100 devs, if whatever they come out with is going to have utility. So what's going to be the utility of the NFTs? Don't really know, right? But here's this example, okay? And of course we have the narrative, which nobody has, of being like hack proof, right? If you top up whatever amount of 100 you have, $100 worth, $1,000 worth, doesn't matter, $5,000 worth, to protect yourself from any type of hack, all you have to do is top up your wallet, right? And you want to do it every 100 hours if you can, at least once a week. I try to top up my wallet once. I don't try. I do. I top up once a week, right? Because it's just easy for me to remember the day or whatever, right? So here's one hacker. I don't even know who this is, right? But this happened a few years ago. This is one hacker who was able to somehow hack 127,000 Bitcoin, which is currently worth $13.8 billion. We also know that, the Bybit hacker this year hacked for 1.5 billion. Now, when this guy or gal, don't know, hacked this, it wasn't worth as much as it is right now. But this hacker, this is going to be funny. This hacker hodled. Look at this. This hacker has been hodling. This person has not moved any of their Bitcoin. And it's not because they can't move it. Again, you know, Bitcoin can't be locked or anything, frozen or anything like that. Right? Now he or she probably can't put it on exchanges, I'm sure. Right? But, you know, in the real world, this can be used. In fact, just 2 months ago, some address sent it some Bitcoin or whatever. So again, it's still a live wallet. Right? And this just represents one person, right? One person with one hack, right? Not the $320 million Bitcoin hack that happened earlier this year, not Bybit, you know, not all of the stuff that goes on. So if 100 becomes, right, the thing that can't be hacked, the thing that is impossible to hack, right, which it is now. I'm just talking about people's understanding of it. If they know, hey, if I use this, nobody can take it. Even if I happen to click on a link or something like that, if I'm topped up, nobody's taking that. Right? If that becomes the narrative, then I think this is the bare minimum, because this is one hack. Right? Which again, to me, plays into like the better stablecoin type deal. Because why hold a stablecoin that can be hacked? The internet is full of stories of people who've lost their USDC. Right? In fact, the internet is full of stories of USDC itself taking your money. But that's another video for another day. Right? So if there's another alternative where some people use it, say, no, I'm not going to hold it in this or that. I'm going to hold it in 100, because if I hold it in 100, right, and I top up, it can't be taken. Right? Going back to Bitcoin, a lot of these top Bitcoin wallets is Bitcoin that was confiscated by governments. And they actually show it to you. Here's the U.S. government here. Bitfinex hack, $10 billion worth. The government now counts that Bitcoin under their treasury, right? The stuff that they got from Bitfinex. Here's the Mt. Gox hacker, 8.7 billion. Right? Here's Silk Road, 7.6 billion. Right? So that's proof that, Bitcoin can get got. Right? So if there's something that literally you can't even move if you wanted to, if you top up, you can't even move it. So hackers definitely can't move it, right? If people want that kind of protection, 100 is the only option, because depending on, if you travel like I do, certain airports, right, they're checking for your crypto now. And certain people's crypto has been confiscated at the airport. That is a thing. It's real. It's happening, because these governments they're not going to Uniswap, bro. They're not going to Binance. They're taking it from you because they want it. One of the biggest confiscated cases of Bitcoin was a dude that was selling DVDs back in like 2010 and 11. And people were sending him Bitcoin for these DVDs and stuff like that. And so my man ended up with 25,000 or so. It was more than that. He ended up with more than that. But, some country made him give up 25,000 Bitcoin because a couple people, he was based in some Eastern European country, right? But it was Germany. that actually went after him. He's not even a German citizen. And they made him give up, some of his Bitcoin. And then they went back years later. I've talked about that on here. Hey, give us some more. And he gave them some more. So, I bet he would have liked to have had something like 100 where they couldn't take it if they wanted to. Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to try to do harm to you or something like that. But the bottom line is, no matter what they do to you, if you're trying to keep your money safe for your family, for your kids, or for whatever, right, there's literally nothing they can do, right? And even after the 100 hours is over, if your wallet isn't compromised, they can't do anything. But even if your wallet, people are out here clicking links, right? I just heard about, this guy that raised money for cancer, and he live streamed it, and somebody sent him a link in the live stream, and they took his cancer money live, right? So people are out there trying to take your money, man. If that was 100, he would not, have had his money taken, right? So I say at least this is the market cap of 100. If it becomes like, a little bit of, hey, this is unhackable, right? So we have the superior stablecoin narrative. We have the gaming narrative. We have the NFT potential narrative. And you have the, most secure crypto in the world narrative. Now, it remains to see which one of those narratives actually becomes the thing, right? It remains to see. Will it be all of them? I don't know. Will it be some of them? We'll see. But if it's just one of them, right, it's significantly higher than where we are now. So let me tell you where we are now, then I'll wrap it up, right? Because I made a comment in my last video that, I didn't realize how cheap 100 was compared to when I bought BNB, right? So I think it was, I bought BNB at $1. CZ got BNB at 10 cents. Well, 100 in BNB terms is 6.5 cents at the time of that video. So now let's do it with Bitcoin. So there's 21 million Bitcoin. 100 is 13 million market cap. So that means it's not $1. So that means in Bitcoin terms, 100 is like 60 cents. So let's go and look at the first time that 100 hit 60 cents. And it looks like it was in 2011. January or February 2011, somewhere in there. There we go. 69 cents right there, February 2nd. 2011. This is how early we are in 100. We're in 2011 Bitcoin time, right? So, there's time for it to become at least one of those narratives. It's important. You got to understand this, how early you are, man or woman. Like, this is where we are. People are always saying, man, I wish I was able to buy Bitcoin early. I wish I was able to buy this early. The issue with that is most people would not recognize the opportunity because you've given all of your credibility to somebody else. You need a Michael Saylor, right? Or a Cameron Winklevoss or somebody like that to get you in stuff. Right. Meanwhile, there was a guy, by the name of Da Vinci Jeremy, who had a shiny head and was in a dingy looking type basement real basic with a members only jacket on, and he's telling you to buy Bitcoin at $1. And if you go and look at that video, those comments are filled with nothing but regret. Man, I saw this video, I didn't act. This is going to be that video for you, potentially. There's no guarantees, right? No guarantees at all. But I've laid out for you the potential narratives because of the code that it has. If 100 was just a token, then it doesn't have any of those narratives. If it's just a, anybody token, it's not, right? It's special. So when you have something like that, it's important that you act on it, but you sometimes need people like myself to break it down to help you understand where we are, right? And, you might be somebody watching this video and maybe you've heard some negative things about 100 or whatever. They're still talking negative about Bitcoin today, but they were especially talking negative about Bitcoin back in the day because anything that's new scares people. Anything that's new, like, oh, I'm not used to that. Like, I find it fascinating that there were, Wall Street guys who had, the potential to buy Bitcoin early and they didn't pay attention. They blew it off, right? The people who could have bought the most Bitcoin ever, they blew it off. Well, 100 is like, I think, the thing that crypto people that are in crypto can blow off. Because it doesn't look like anything else. It doesn't act like I'm used to trading. I'm used to getting in and out. I'm used to doing that, right? So crypto people actually have the opportunity to get in this and they might ignore it. So it might bring in a new generation of people who are not your typical crypto people who will actually, take advantage of that. I thought about that today. I thought that was interesting. Right? So, sometimes talking to crypto people about 100 doesn't make any sense, just like Bitcoin people talking to capitalists about Bitcoin didn't make any sense. Well, what ended up happening? All of those people wish that they could go back. Right? Don't be that guy. All right, it's your boy BSG. I'm going to holler at y'all in the next video.